World War I, also known as the Great War, was one of the most devastating conflicts in human history. Between 1914 and 1918, over 30 nations were drawn into a war that reshaped borders, overthrew empires, and forever changed how wars are fought. But how did it begin, and why, more than a century later, does it still matter? The war officially began on July 28, 1914. But the spark was lit a month earlier on June 28, 1914, when Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, was assassinated in Sarajevo by Gavrilo Princip, a Bosnian Serb nationalist. But the roots of the war ran deeper. The early 20th century was a time of extreme nationalism, complex alliances, imperial ambitions, and a fierce arms race. Europe was a powder keg. Four major causes are often summarized as militarism. Nations built up massive armies and navies. Alliances, entangling treaties, meant that if one nation was attacked, others would be pulled in. Imperialism, competition for colonies, and global dominance fueled tensions. Nationalism, ethnic groups sought independence, especially in the Balkans. After the assassination, Austria-Hungary issued an ultimatum to Serbia. When Serbia's response failed to meet all demands, Austria-Hungary declared war. Russia mobilized to defend Serbia, Germany supported Austria-Hungary, France and Britain joined in shortly after. Within weeks, much of Europe was at war. World War I was fought on several fronts, but the Western Front, stretching from Belgium to France, became infamous for trench warfare. Millions of soldiers lived and died in muddy, rat-infested trenches. Battles like the Somme, Verdun and Ypres became synonymous with horror. At the Battle of the Somme alone, more than 1 million men were killed or wounded. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Front, Germany and Austria-Hungary battled Russia in brutal and fast-moving engagements. New technology transformed the battlefield. Machine guns and artillery mowed down waves of soldiers. Tanks, though primitive, debuted during the war. Airplanes were used for reconnaissance and eventually dogfights. Poison gas introduced chemical warfare. By 1917, the war had become a bloody stalemate. That year, two pivotal events occurred. The United States entered the war after German submarines sank civilian ships, including the Lusitania, and after the discovery of the Zimmermann telegram, Germany's proposal to help Mexico retake U.S. territory. Russia withdrew from the war after the Bolshevik Revolution, leading to a new communist regime under Lenin. With fresh American troops and resources, the tide turned in favor of the Allies. In 1918, Germany launched a final offensive but failed. Exhausted, demoralized, and facing internal unrest, Germany agreed to an armistice on November 11, 1918. The war was over. Over 16 million people were dead. Entire cities lay in ruin. Empires had collapsed. The Ottoman Empire, Austro-Hungarian Empire, Russian Empire, and the German Empire all ceased to exist. In 1919, world leaders gathered at the Palace of Versailles to draft a peace treaty, but instead of healing wounds, the Treaty of Versailles sowed the seeds for future conflict. Germany was forced to accept full responsibility for the war, pay massive reparations, lose territory and colonies, and limit its military. Many Germans viewed the treaty as a national humiliation. Economic hardship and political instability followed, setting the stage for the rise of Adolf Hitler in World War II. New nations were carved out of old empires, borders shifted, millions found themselves living in foreign lands. The League of Nations was formed to promote peace, but it lacked real power and failed to prevent further wars. World War I changed the world in profound ways. Modern warfare was born. Tactics and technology from World War I shaped every major conflict afterward. Medical advances emerged from the need to treat mass casualties. Triage, blood transfusions and reconstructive surgery all advanced rapidly. Women's roles in society shifted as many took on jobs vacated by men. This momentum helped fuel women's suffrage movements globally. Political ideologies like communism and fascism gained ground in the power vacuum left by falling empires. And perhaps most importantly, World War I taught the world that no war is truly the war to end all wars. Today, the war is remembered through memorials, literature, and the continued commitment through organizations like the United Nations to prevent global conflict. A century may have passed, but the echoes of World War I are still with us. It was a war of unimaginable scale, a tragedy of human ambition, and a turning point in history. It changed how we fight, how we live, and how we strive for peace. Fade to black.